Welcome back. Let me ask you something. What if the reason you feel exhausted, the reason you feel inconsistent, even the reason you feel like you're falling behind is not because you're not doing enough, but because you're trying to give 100% on the days you only have 30%. Then think about that. Because most people never question this. They just wake up, look at their goals, look at their expectations, and demand the same version of themselves every single day. But we both know life doesn't work like that. Because your energy changes, your stress levels change, your environment changes, and yet your expectations, they stay rigid. Let me take you somewhere for a moment. Imagine you're on a run, not an easy one, a hard one. The course is hilly. Your legs feel heavy. Your breathing is tight. And you did not sleep well the night before. And yet, you look at your watch and you're trying to hit that same pace, that pace you hit on your very best day. So you push harder, you force it, you fight your body, and what happens? You don't perform any better. In fact, you start to burn out and you slow down even more. And then maybe you stop altogether. Now, here's the truth. No smart runner runs that way. Yeah. No smart runner. Great runners run by feel. They adjust their pace based on the day they have, not on the day they wish they'd had. But in life, we don't do that. We try to sprint uphill on tired legs in the middle of emotional storms. And then we blame ourselves when we can't keep up. Now, I've done this, more times than I can count. Days when I was emotionally, mentally, and physically drained and exhausted and stretched. And yet I tried to show up like I did on the days that I was feeling alive. And you know what happened? I didn't just perform worse. I started to resent the process, the life I was living. I started to question everything about myself. Like, was I even capable of doing this? And I started to believe I was failing. But the truth was, I wasn't failing. I was just mismanaging my energy. And the moment I realized that, everything changed. Because what if giving 100% doesn't mean your maximum output? It doesn't mean that, not specifically. What if it means giving 100% of what you actually, truly, and honestly have? When I was first introduced to this thought process, it was my grade 11 English class. And it wasn't quite in this form, but it was similar. My teacher, Mrs. Samborski, she said, the secret to happiness life is a lot more simple than we think. So the secret to a happy life is simply doing your best every day, while never, ever comparing to today's best to yesterday's best. Because one day you can climb mountains, and the next day, the best you can do is just showing up, and that's enough. And then years later, I was at this conference, and there was this guy speaking at this conference. He was talking. He had a real scratchy voice, and he was like, I normally, he was like, normally I'm committed to giving 100%, but 2 days ago I had laryngitis. I didn't even have a voice. So today I'm running at 30%, but you can count on me to give you 100% of that 30% today. And that's when a light bulb came on in my head. So let's look at what's the root of the problem. Let's break this down. Because this is where most people get stuck, not because they lack discipline, but because they've been taught the wrong rules. The first lie, the number one and biggest lie in life, is you need to always give 100%. And maybe it's not exactly a lie, but it's not completely and fully explained. Because you've heard it your whole life. Give 100%. Go on. Push harder. No excuses. Go, go, go. No fear. And it sounds powerful, especially when we say it fast. But here's the problem. The assumption, the background assumption there. And it's assuming you always have 100%. And you don't always have that much. No one does. Like, you can look out there and it appears like people do, but no one really has that kind of potential of performance every day. Not mentally, not emotionally, not physically. So what happens? Say tomorrow. Tomorrow you wake up, or say tomorrow I wake, or we both wake up on a 40% day. And because you've been so hyped up to think that you need to always give 100%, you go out and you try to operate like it's 100% day. And that 60% gap, that's where frustration lives. That's where self-doubt begins. That's where the questioning if you're even capable begins. Because somebody's telling you to give 100% and you don't have it. The worst part is that's where your burnout begins. So what's the second problem? And this is a really big problem in life because people will confuse effort with output. Listen carefully. Effort and output are not the same thing. They're really not. Effort is an internal process. And output is an external result. You can give full effort, everything you got, and still produce less output. And that doesn't mean you failed. It just means your capacity today was different. It's not a failure if you don't hit that mark every day. But it may be a failure if you don't try, if you don't give what you got on the day. You got to adjust it. Now, the third problem, and a big problem for a lot of people, is guilt. And this is the silent killer. You wake up tired. You feel off. But instead of adjusting, instead of shifting things around, you judge yourself. I should be doing more. What's wrong with me? Why am I so lazy? You know, the funny thing is, I was actually talking to an athlete the other day. And they were like, I'm just so afraid of being lazy or becoming lazy. And I laughed and I said, you know, I have never heard an actual lazy person say anything like that. But I've heard so many extraordinary athletes say that. I think just the fact that you think that way proves that you're not lazy. But anyway, like we're sitting there with this guilt because there's something wrong or we're lazy or I should be doing more. And guilt does not motivate. It doesn't move you forward. It doesn't get you like increase your output. It actually drains more of energy. And now that 40% day that you had when you began because of this deep guilt becomes a 20% day. And it's not because of reality. It's because mindset, you know? Like literally on that 40% day, if you don't guilt yourself, you could use that 40% to bring up a 40% output that you're proud of because you weighed it with where you were at that day. And you say, like, according to the day, I did amazing. I gave 100% of what I had. Now, there's another problem. Problem number 4, nervous system overload. And it is actually real. Think about it. When you feel incredibly stressed, is it hard or easy to think straight? And you think just physiologically, the more stressed you get, the higher your cortisol levels. And the cortisol is your stress hormone. When the cortisol gets to a certain peak, it shifts your body into the sympathetic nervous system. Remember, parasympathetic, rest, digest, recover, sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight. Now, your brain takes innervation away from your reproductive and your digestive organs. So, like, maybe that's why you get a stomach ache when you're stressed and you're not digesting food very well. Maybe you get constipated. And it pushes it over into your muscular system to get ready to fight or run. Your heart rate goes up and your heart compressions get stronger. You sweat. And your brain literally cannot perform at peak levels. Your decision-making drops. Your focus drops. Literally, motivation will drop. So anytime you're trying to force performance and adding to the stress that's already there, your brain's going to resist it. And that resistance, it kind of feels like procrastination, kind of feels like lack of discipline, but it's not. It's overload. It's overload. It's sympathetic nervous system. It's fight or flight. The core truth is, when you demand peak performance at a depleted state, your brain begins to associate effort with pain. And when effort feels like pain, of course you're going to avoid it. And this is the cycle where burnout is born. And this is the cycle where the thing you used to love becomes something that you don't feel the same way about, that you don't want to do. This is where your joy goes. So let's talk about the reframe. And this is where everything shifts. This is the moment that can change how you live your life. And this is the reframe. You don't need to give 100% output. You only need to give 100% honesty. Period. It's not 100% of what you can potentially do. It's 100% of what you have on the day. Honesty about where you are, honesty about what you have, and honesty about what today requires. If you're running at 40% and you give 100% of your 40%, then you've done enough. Another part of the reframe is the daily capacity scale. For every single day, ask yourself one question. How much physical, emotional, mental capital do I have to spend today? Like, how much do I actually have? Not how much I wish I had, and not how much I had yesterday, but how much do I have to spend today? Do I have 30%? Do I have 50%? Do I have 70 or 90%? And think about it. And once you know, you adjust your expectation of the output of the day. You give 100% of what you have, but you adjust the outcome. Like, first off, you can match effort to energy. So if you're at 30%, you don't need to conquer the world. You go into maintenance. You go into protection mode. You go into recovery mode. You lower your expectations of the day, which doesn't mean for your whole life. It just means today. Because one day, 1 week, 1 month, compared to a lifetime of doing this. If you're trying to push too hard when you don't have it, eventually you're going to burn out. But if you live with what you have, you may have a very different experience of your life. Now, if you're at an 80%, that's when you push. 80% and higher, that's when you build. That's when you go. That's when you have the energy. So you spend the capital when you have it, and you reserve the capital when you don't. One of the things everyone needs to do, no matter how productive you are in life, how extraordinary you are in sport, business, whatever, is you need to redefine what winning means. Because winning is not about getting everything done, about doing everything every single day. A true win, like a real win and a sustainable win, is showing up honestly. Because if you're not sacrificing yourself and destroying yourself, if you're maintaining or building yourself, then you're winning. Even if your output isn't like the ultimate output you could have. Like, think of it. If it's a 30% day and you give a full 30%, you didn't fall short. You didn't minimize. You didn't give up. You executed perfectly. That was a perfect execution. That was a win. Think about another strategy, minimum effective standard. And this is a great standard. This is a great anchor. Your non-negotiable baseline, even on your worst days, maybe it is 10 minutes of moving, 1 meaningful task, 1 moment of connection. That's your minimum basic standard. And you can do that no matter how bad you're feeling. You can move for 10 minutes. You can complete one meaningful task, and you can create 1 moment of connection. And that's it. That's your non-negotiable baseline. That's how you maintain momentum without burning out. That's how you could live your life by feel. On the days when you don't have it, 10 minutes movement, 1 meaningful task, and 1 moment of connection. Another very important strategy is remove judgment. Remove judgment. Stop calling days good or bad. Days are not good or bad. They're different. Some days may be high capacity days. Some days may be low capacity days. That's it. But there's no good or bad. And how do you know if it's good or bad, right? If you only have so much and you allow yourself to recover that day, and the next day you have 3 times as much to give, Do you call the day that where you recovered a bad day, or was it a good day because it set you up for a really good day the next day? Think about it. Consistency is not doing the same thing every day. Consistency is just showing up differently based on what you have, honestly, truthfully. Consistency isn't about output. The consistency is about honestly understanding where you're at, honestly giving and spending capital according to where you're at. You know, myself, there was a period in my life where, everything felt heavy. Pressure from work, you know, and I wasn't working a job that I loved too back then. There was work, expectations, internal standards, and I was exhausted. I wasn't sleeping well. I was so stressed out. I was not doing what I needed to be doing on this earth. I'd taken a job because it had a title, and I thought, now I'm going to be important. And I kept trying to push through it. I'm working harder, faster, more. I mean, I wake up 2 o'clock in the morning, buzzing wide awake, and I just go to work. And for a while it worked, but then what started was I started losing weight. I started sleeping less and less. I was shaking all the time. And it worked until it didn't. And I hit a wall. First, mentally, everything started to feel like effort. I had nothing outside of work. And I remember sitting there thinking, what is wrong with me? And then one day on my way home, I started getting chest pain. And it wasn't getting any better, and I was having trouble breathing. And I've been pushing so hard for so long. I went to my doctor. They sent me to the hospital. I was in the cardiac ward. Sitting there thinking, well, this is how it ends. And then I said to whoever was listening in my head, get me out of this. And I promise I'll figure out what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And I started to ask other questions, like, what am I ignoring? And the answer was so simply. I was ignoring my capacity. I was trying to push through at 100% when I only had 10 or 20 or 30% most days. And I wasn't moving towards anything. I was just existing out of fear. So that's when I shifted everything, realized this was not the path. So I adjusted. And after that experience, everything changed, and not overnight, but steadily. And I started showing up a bit differently, like less force, more awareness, more honesty, and slowly, as I worked towards something that was inspiring my life, my momentum came back, my energy came back, and eventually, as I got into a new job, my performance came back stronger than I've ever had. The strongest people are not the ones who push the hardest every day. They are the ones who know when to push and they know when to adjust. And they are also the most successful people. So let's bring this home. You're not inconsistent. You are human. Your energy changes, your capacity changes. And the moment you stop fighting that and you start working with it, everything changes. So starting tomorrow, I don't want you to try to be the best version of yourself according to history. I want you to be honest. I want to ask yourself, what do I have today? And then give 100% of that. So 20% is all I have today. You give 100% of that 20%. Nothing more and nothing less. Because some days you're going to fly. And everything clicks and everything flows. And some days you're just going to move forward one step at a time. Heavy, slow, but real. And both days matters. Both of those days matter. Build your life. Stop trying to be perfect. Start trying to be consistent. Start being honest. Start running by feel. And if you do that long enough, consistency enough, patient enough, one day, you won't just be surviving your life. You'll be flying through it. Thanks for joining me again. Keep on giving just 100% of what you have. Keep on working hard and building your own inner advocate.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Your Inner Advocate, a podcast by Kimen Petersen, formerly Conversations with Kimen. If you found value in today's episode, please follow, like, and share the podcast with someone who you think may benefit from it. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and connect on Instagram at your_inner_advocate. Until next time, keep listening to and developing your inner advocate.